Here we go. We finish up this lesson on the verb piacere with the actual Italian. Again, we said that the verb piacere does not really mean to like, it means to appeal. We already saw the structure. You can refer to the previous video to understand it better, but this is now about tenses and about Italian. Well, first of all, guys, we already said that we will only use the third person, singular and plural, because the verb piacere really logically means to appeal and not to like. So let's put down the Italian for the third person singular and the third person plural. So let's write it down. We are dealing with third persons. And we have singular and we have, of course, plural. So let's change the color of the pen. So we already saw the third persons singular and plural in the present tense. Let's write them down. Piace and piacciono. The respectively means it appeals, or he appeals, or they appeal. The imperfecto of the very regular IRI verb piacere is piaceva or piacevano. Again, these respectively means it used to appeal or they used to appeal. For the passato prossimo, please be advised right now. You didn't know it, but now you do. The verb piacere, to appeal, uses the auxiliary essere. So for the third person singular, it should be no surprise to see e, and for the third person plural, no surprise, you will see the third person plural of the verb essere, sono. And given the fact that the past participle of the verb piacere is piaciuto, slightly irregular, it should be no surprise that you see piaciuto or piaciuta when you use it for something singular, or piaciuti or piaciute. Well, let's say /e is a lot better. Piaciuti or piaciute for the forms of the plural. So these two last forms will respectively mean these masculine things yesterday appealed to Enrico, or this feminine thing yesterday appealed to Enrico, or otherwise my father appealed to Enrico or my mother appealed to Enrico, and on the plural side my parents appealed to Enrico would be sono piaciuti, because my parents in Italian is masculine, and my pens appealed to Enrico would be sono piaciute, because pen in Italian is feminine. Now with this in mind, let's put together the sentences so that we know how to handle it. Let's use the structure as we learned it. So we're going to have on the first column the indirect object. Then we're going to have the verb to like, verb piacere, and then we're going to have in the last column the true new subject, which used to be the direct object. Let's call it the object of liking. Object of liking. I'm sorry about the pen. Now let me write object. That O stands for object. Alright, so the sentence would look like this. A Enrico? A Enrico piace I should have maybe left a little bit of space over here. A Enrico piace la mia casa. Let's put it into the imperfetto. A Enrico, again third person singular, piaceva la mia casa. A Enrico è piaciuta la mia casa. Ai miei amici piace, ai miei amici piace la mia casa. Ai miei amici piaceva la mia casa, o ai miei amici è piaciuta la mia casa. Let's discuss this. We cannot just put down every single example that we have in mind, but this should really teach you what this class is all about. Well, first of all, as you can see, the three singular form piace, piaceva e piaciuta repeat, no matter who the indirect object is. A Enrico or ai miei amici makes no difference. We use the third person singular in all of these examples because la mia casa is singular. The object of liking is what really makes the third person singular important to be used in all of these examples. A Enrico, which means to Enrico, it could have been to my parents. It doesn't matter. Ai miei amici, a Enrico, ai miei genitori. Let's spell out so many of these indirect objects that we can put in front of piace, piaceva, or piaciuta. And maybe you can repeat after me in English, and then we'll see how we do that in Italian. All right? First of all, we can use pronouns. Rather than saying, to Enrico appeals my house, I can easily say to me appeals my house. I can say to you, I can say to him, like to Enrico, or to her, or to my mother, or I can say to us, or to you guys, or to them, other than to my friends or to my parents. The first column just needs to be an indirect object. And you just play with that. You can put names, or you can put pronouns. We'll see how that changes things. As you can see, the verb needs to be either piace, o piaceva, or è piaciuta. If the subject, the true subject, the subject in English, which is the object of, I am just scratch this off. Our new subject, which is la mia casa, in fact, being the subject, calls for the third person singular. Just notice there is something that you need to remember, that when it comes to the passato prossimo, the third person singular could be è piaciuta or è piaciuto. Now we have è piaciuta in this particular example, but if we change la mia casa into my book, and we know that my book is il mio libro, well, these sentences will change respectively into a Enrico piace il mio libro, a Enrico piaceva il mio libro, a Enrico è piaciuto il mio libro, O otherwise, ai miei amici piace il mio libro, ai miei amici piaceva il mio libro, ai miei amici è piaciuto il mio libro. Again, with this in mind, let's understand how we use pronouns. Now, remember, if we don't have pronouns, you always have to say a plus the name of the person that does the liking. Okay? So, a Enrico, ai miei genitori, ai miei amici, a Marta, a Teresa, or disjunctive pronouns. A me, a te, a lui, a noi, a voi e a loro. A me piace la mia casa, a te piaceva la mia casa, a lui è piaciuta la mia casa. The only thing that you need to remember it is in Italian we don't use disjunctive pronouns unless we stress the sentence. Like in sentences like a me è piaciuta la mia casa, non a mia madre. I like my house, but my mother did not. The stress implies some form of comparison. Usually we don't use comparisons. In that case we use the standard indirect object pronouns in Italian, mi, ti, gli, le, ci, vi, gli again. That's something you need to remember. Now let's put together a standard sentence in Italian the way you usually see it, where you use in fact indirect object pronoun, not a plus disjunctive pronoun. So please reserve the a to the third person singular and plural, whether followed by either a noun or a name. So Enrico, ai miei genitori, ai miei amici, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, please lead the expression with indirect object pronouns. Mi, ti, gli, le, ci, vi, and gli. And the rest of the sentence, let's make some sense of it. Repeat after me. Mi piace la mia casa. I like my house. Ti piace la mia casa? Do you like my house? Yesterday I met Mr. Ashone and he said that he likes my house. Altogether, gli piace la mia casa. Or otherwise, yesterday I met or I spoke with my mother and she told me that she likes my house. Altogether, le piace la mia casa. Well, the last two sentences, of course, I need to give you a much longer sentence because otherwise we cannot use gli and le. We all know that those two pronouns, you can use them only if the person that we are referring to is being discussed. Otherwise, we just say a mia madre piace la mia casa, al mio professore piace la mia casa. Altogether, ci piace la mia casa. We like my house. Vi piace la mia casa? Do you guys like my house? Gli piace la mia casa needs to be used in a context, otherwise you don't know which gli you're using. But if you say, yesterday I spoke to my parents and they like my house, they like my house would be gli piace la mia casa. You can change tenses and you can deal with imperfetto. I used to like my house. Mi piaceva la mia casa. You used to like my house. Ti piaceva la mia casa. And so on and so forth. As you can see, I'm using all the forms of the third person singular because we are discussing my house. If I change it into let's change it into my trees. I miei alberi. You would say, repeat after me. Mi piacciono I miei alberi. Ti piacciono I miei alberi? Gli piacciono I miei alberi. Le piacciono I miei alberi. Or otherwise, if you want to use an imperfetto, I would say mi piacevano I miei alberi, ti piacevano I miei alberi, gli piacevano I miei alberi, le piacevano I miei alberi, ci piacevano I miei alberi, vi piacevano I miei alberi, gli piacevano I miei alberi. If you want to use a passato prossimo, you will say mi sono piaciuti I miei alberi. And here we go. Now we handle the third person plural, I miei alberi, with sono piaciuti because alberi is masculine. You would say mi sono piaciute le mie sorelle, if you want to use something feminine. So altogether, mi sono piaciuti I miei alberi, mi sono piaciute le mie penne, ti sono piaciuti I miei alberi, ti sono piaciute le mie sorelle, gli sono piaciuti I miei alberi, gli sono piaciute le mie sorelle, and so on and so forth. Senti with the imperfetto, mi piacevano, ti piacevano, gli piacevano, le piacevano, ci piacevano. The content of these two videos is to really get you to understand the rules. You need to really complement it with your own reflections. You really need to apply this concept to the concrete case. Just remember, I want to see this pronounced mi, ti, gli, le, ci, vi, gli in front of the verb piacere. Unless, of course, there is the name of a person that you need to handle. In that case, would be a plus that name. Of course, that only works with the third person, singular and plural. Mi, ti, ci, and vi, by definition, when you talk about yourself, a speaker will never pronounce his own name. He would say mi piace. I will never say Enrico piace if Enrico is me. If I look at somebody in his eyes, I will not pronounce your name. I would just say you like. So the third person's really fish back this plus the name that you need to remember. And remember, the structure a me, a te, a lui, a lei, a noi, a voi, a loro in Italian is used only when you compare. In situations like I like my parents, not you. Actually, I like my parents. Not you, meaning that you don't like my parents. And so on and so forth. When you compare the subjects of the verb to like. Guys, my class is finished. I hope it makes it somehow better for you. Of course, you will refer to the verb piacere in the book and you will do the exercises. Thank you. Have a nice weekend.